Let's jump right into this explainer today and really demystify how we experience, manage, and ultimately treat anxiety using some highly effective evidence-based strategies. We all face stress, but when that stress morphs into this overwhelming spiral, it can feel, well, completely impossible to escape. So today we're going to break down exactly what is happening in your mind and body, and way more importantly, how you can actually take back control.
So tell me, have you ever suddenly felt detached from the present moment? Almost like you're watching your own life from afar? Or maybe the world around you just suddenly looks kind of unreal or unfamiliar? Well, this is actually called dissociation. And it's a very real, very frightening symptom of extreme anxiety and panic. It can leave you feeling completely untethered. But the really good news here is that there are proven ways to firmly plant your feet back on the ground.
So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, understanding and spotting anxiety. 2. Immediate relief with grounding techniques. 3. Daily habits for management. And finally, 4. Clinical and primary care.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Understanding and Spotting Anxiety.
Right off the bat, the absolute most crucial thing to understand is that anxiety is actually a perfectly natural human reaction. It's literally an evolutionary response to pressure or feeling threatened. And honestly, in small, manageable doses, it can even be helpful. It keeps us alert, it helps us focus on challenges, but when that natural alarm system gets stuck in the on position and you start worrying intensely about ordinary, everyday situations, that's when it becomes a problem that really interferes with your daily life.
And to put that into perspective, this stat brilliantly illustrates just how common this misfire is. 1 in 5 U.S. adults suffers from some sort of mental illness each year. Think about that for a second. If you're struggling with overwhelming feelings of worry or panic, you are absolutely not alone. Millions of people are navigating this exact same spiral, and more importantly, millions of people are successfully treating it.
Now, what's really fascinating and frankly exhausting is that anxiety doesn't just stay in your head. It turns those abstract worries into very real, very uncomfortable physical distress. You might experience a pounding heart, hyperventilation, sweating, maybe even trembling. You might find you literally can't sleep, or you develop these totally unexplained headaches, stomach aches, and muscle pains. Your body is physically reacting to a perceived threat, pumping you full of adrenaline for a danger that exists entirely in your thoughts.
Over time, this physical distress can build into specific clinical conditions. On one end of the spectrum, we have generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. Think of this as a slow, persistent burn. It's this continuous, excessive worry about ordinary, routine stuff that is just completely out of proportion to the actual circumstances. On the other end, we have panic disorder. This is a sudden, intense spike of sheer terror, a panic attack that hits its peak within minutes, bringing with it feelings of impending doom and extreme physical symptoms like chest pain.
Which brings us to Section 2, Immediate Relief, Grounding Techniques.
When that acute spike of panic hits, you need an emergency brake. Enter the 5-4-3-2-1 method. This is a highly tactile technique that forces your brain to process immediate sensory input, firmly anchoring you back in the present moment. It's super simple. You look around and name 5 things you can see. Then physically touch 4 things. Listen for 3 distinct sounds. Find 2 things you can smell, and focus on 1 thing you can taste. By engaging all 5 senses, you are essentially short-circuiting the panic loop happening in your head.
Another incredibly powerful emergency tool is the box breathing technique. See, when you're anxious, your breathing becomes rapid and shallow, which just signals to your brain that you're in danger. Box breathing forces control back into the system. You just breathe in deeply for 4 slow counts, hold that breath for 4 counts, exhale smoothly for 4 counts, and hold your lungs empty for 4 counts. Just repeating this cycle physically forces your heart rate to slow down, communicating to your brain that, hey, you are actually safe.
Now, this next one is absolutely fascinating. The power of cold. If you feel a panic attack coming on, splashing cold water on your face or even pressing an ice cube to your wrist can work absolute wonders. Why? Well, this surprising sensory trick activates something called the mammalian diving reflex. It's a built-in evolutionary mechanism that instantly slows your heart rate and redirects blood flow. It physically forces your body to regulate stress and calm down.
You can also use numbers to break the spiral by engaging the rational part of your brain. Try counting backwards from 100 by sevenths. So 100, 93, 86, 79. Because this requires a bit of mental effort, it gives your brain a highly focused, analytical task. You quite literally cannot maintain an abstract, catastrophic emotional spiral while simultaneously doing complex math. It just yanks you right out of the emotional center of your brain and puts you back in the logical driver's seat.
Okay, let's shift gears to Section 3, Daily Habits for Management.
Now that we know how to handle the spikes, building resilience requires daily maintenance, much like physical exercise. These are NHS-recommended daily habits that make a massive difference over time. Practicing mindfulness helps you observe your thoughts without judging them. Keeping a diary helps pinpoint your specific triggers. Facing fears gradually prevents your world from shrinking. But my absolute favorite tip here is setting a daily worry time. Think of it like scheduling a meeting with your stress. By giving yourself, say, a dedicated 15 minutes a day just to worry, you effectively compartmentalize that stress so it doesn't leak out and hijack your entire day.
A fantastic daily practice to incorporate is the body scan. This is a simple mindfulness exercise where you sit or lie down comfortably, close your eyes, and just slowly move your attention upward from your toes all the way up to the top of your head. You're not trying to change anything, you're just observing sensations. Like, are your shoulders up by your ears? Is your jaw clenched? Tuning into that physical tension allows you to catch and release that stress way before it escalates into a full-blown panic attack.
And finally, that brings us to Section 4, Clinical and Primary Care.
Because sometimes home management isn't quite enough, and that is perfectly okay. Clinical practice guidelines exist to reassure you that treating anxiety isn't guesswork. When you visit a doctor or a primary care center, the protocols they use are highly structured. They are rigorously tested, and they are backed by extensive scientific evidence. Professional care is designed to offer a very clear step-by-step pathway to getting your life back.
The absolute gold standard of this clinical care is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. A trained professional is going to use specific tools to help rewire your anxiety-causing thoughts. This includes psychoeducation, so you actually understand your condition inside and out. It includes cognitive restructuring to challenge and change those unhelpful thought patterns. And crucially, it includes in vivo exposure, which means safely and gradually exposing you to the situations that trigger your anxiety so your brain slowly learns that they aren't actually dangerous.
And here is something I find incredibly encouraging about clinical treatment. It is not endless. These therapies have very specific, defined timelines and objectives. You begin cognitive restructuring right in week 1. For panic disorder, the average duration to significantly relieve symptoms is just between 8 to 16 weeks. For generalized anxiety disorder, clinical guidelines recommend an average of about 10 sessions spread over 6 months. The entire goal of these structured programs is to give you the tools you need and get you right back to living your life.
Before we finish up, I really want to share this brilliant quote from consultant clinical psychologist Professor Paul Solkovoskis. He says, if you're feeling anxious, there's a good chance you're thinking things are more dangerous than they really are. I love this because it perfectly normalizes the experience. It's a vital reminder that your anxiety is quite literally lying to you. It's a false alarm that is massively overestimating the level of danger. And just recognizing that is the very first step to taking your power back.
So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a provocative question to reflect on. If you stepped back and looked at the bigger picture, what advice would you give to a friend in your exact situation? You know, we are so often far more compassionate and rational with our friends than we ever are with ourselves. So I challenge you to apply that exact same compassion to your own mental health journey. Use these grounding tools, build up those daily habits, and please, don't hesitate to seek out clinical care if you need it. You absolutely have the power to step out of the anxiety spiral. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and take care of yourself.